We're now on to week 5, and I wanted to discuss a little bit about images and how you can encapsulate them within figure elements and adjust their height, width attributes, and then also load it on your page. So let's get started. So here's my web page. I'm going to start with this basic web page. And really the first thing that I'm going to do before I do everything is I'm going to validate my web page to make sure there are no errors. Because if you have errors in your web page, then you could have other issues with your images. So this is what I always recommend, is validate your web page and do this frequently. You can either check it using direct input, which I'm doing, or you can validate it using a URL. Alright, so now let's get started talking about images. So I'm going to w3schools.com and I'm looking at the image attribute. It says here, this is really important, there are 2 required fields for your image element. You have to have the source attribute and the alt attribute. So those 2 are required, otherwise your web page won't pass validation. Okay, so let's add an image element. Okay, so we have our image element. Source is pound, alt is nothing. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But first thing I do, I'm going to save it. Then I'm going to validate it. And it passes. So we have valid HTML. If we look at the specs for the image element and we look at our 2 required attributes, alt and source. So alt is the alternate text for an image. And this is really good for screen readers or for some reason the image can't get displayed, so we can have some text. So you should always populate the alt with something descriptive about your image. And then the second thing, or actually the first thing, which is really important, is URL, which is the URL to your image. So let's populate those 2 right now. We'll start by populating the source attribute. Right now I just have a pound sign, meaning like there's no URL. So let's go back to Windows Explorer. Here's the folder where I have my HTML file. In this directory, web server, I have a subfolder called images, and that's where my image resides. So I'm going to copy this name, and it's a type JPG. So I just put that file name and did .jpg, and I save it, and I refresh my web page, I get nothing. So let's give it some alternate text. Right, and for the alternate text, we're going to say police. We save it, we go back to our page. So I already refreshed it and see it says police. So now if for some reason the image doesn't show up, the text will be displayed here saying police. So we know this is a picture of police. But now, so why is the image not showing up? Does anybody know? Well, if you answered because we didn't specify the directory, you're correct. So let's go back here and we'll go up 1. So this is where our web page is, and the way the web page is coded for right now is it's looking for that image in the same folder as our index, but it's not in the same folder, it's in a subfolder called images. So we have to append images. And we save it, and now if we refresh, it should work. And okay, so it displayed, but it's huge. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is resize it. And we're going to resize it using, let's say, the height attribute. So height 200 pixels. When we save it, now we've got this really, really cool looking image. Okay, the next thing that I want to do, add a little bit of some more complexity to this, is add 2 more images. So this is exactly the same as the others. I'm not going to specify in all for now, but these are 2 different images, follows the same format, and I refresh it, and now they're all displayed correctly. So I have 3 nice images. Okay, I want you to encapsulate all your images in figure elements, and you use a figure element to mark up a photo in a document. So let's do that. So here I've got figure, and I'm encapsulating my image within a figure. So let's do this for all 3. And I'm going to tab this to make it look a little better. And then when we display it, it's now displayed as block elements instead of inline elements. So before, image displayed horizontally. They were inline elements. Now when we encapsulated them within figure elements, they're block elements. Okay, so have that saved. Now let's validate our HTML again. Check it. Ooh, and we've got some really bad errors. So bad value, 200 pixels for attribute height on element. So let's figure out what that means. Okay, so what it's saying is that it didn't like this P, that 200 px is a bad value. So what it really wants, the validator, is just 200, because it's going to know that we're in pixel units. So what we'll do is get rid of px in this case. We'll save it, copy it, paste it again, and validate it. Okay, so everything is good so far. Alright, so the last element we want to add are big captions. So here we have figure, and here we have big caption. And use a big caption. The big caption tag defines a caption for figure element. The big caption element can be placed as the first or last child of a figure element. So let's add a big caption. So I'm going to select big caption, and we're going to add 3 of those, and then we'll go and look at our web page and figure out what they should be. So we have a policeman, a business person, and a student. And you know, this would be like a lot more descriptive than what I'm typing here. Let's do that. And there, now we have our caption for each image. And we're basically done, but what I want to do is play around with floats and clears, because I want policeman and business person to be on the same line, but I want student to be on its own line, kind of like a 2-column layout. And we can accomplish that with float, clear, and creating our rules, our CSS rules. Okay, so again, I want policeman and business person to be on one line, student to be on a separate line. I'm going to use CSS. So in my example, I'm going to embed my CSS within the same page of HTML. It's not what I want you to do. I want it to be in a separate file. So I'm going to create 3 rules, and I'm going to create IDs because they're going to be unique. So I'm going to have # for an ID rule. I'm going to call this column 1. I'll create the second one, column 2, and then create a third one, call it new column. And then I will apply these rules to my figure elements. Column 1, we will save it, copy it, validate it to make sure everything's okay, and we're great. So this is just like what you did in the last assignment with floating things. So we're going to float the first image to the left. We'll float the second image to the left. Alright, so we're floating the first image to the left, we're floating the second image to the left, and then the last one, we're going to stop the float. So we're going to say, hey, clear floating, we don't want to do it anymore, stop it, create a new line. And we're going to say clear left because we were floating. We save that, come back up before we do anything. Let's copy it and validate it. Check it. Okay, so everything's good. So we have something wrong. What did we do wrong? So look at that for a minute, see if you can figure out what's wrong. Okay, if you haven't figured it out, I said column 3. I have no rule called column 3. So it's supposed to be new column. And there we go. So we've got it fixed. That's the assignment, and that's so that's the assignment, but I want to give you a little bit more information to perhaps challenge you and learn a little bit more. Okay, so this is the folder where my free images reside. You see that they're huge. These are really, really big, and to download these on a web page would drastically slow down the downloading time. So there are ways that you can edit these files and reduce the size of the image without sacrificing quality and improve your website's performance. A free tool that I highly recommend for image editing is called GIMP. So you can go to the web, search for GIMP download, and you can install GIMP. It's a great tool for editing images. So I'm going to see if this works. Drag and drop it here. Here's my image. In the editor, I can do a whole bunch of really cool things to it. Then from this editor, you can do a lot of really cool things, like make transparent images, but the really cool thing is you can save this image for the web, which would drastically reduce the size of it, again, without sacrificing the quality. I'm not going to spend time going into GIMP. You can look at this if you want. It's a really, really nice free image editor tool. So that's it.